Okay, good morning everybody. My name's David. We're using the GoToWebinar software, and if you need to ask questions, there's a questions section in your panel. I'm going to be showing you my screen, and if you have any troubles, just give a call to the office and let them know, but I think everything should be working now. And we're recording this so that it will be available in the future. And there's a few template components, movies available online already. This one will be a little different because we're using version 8 of our software. So here's location, 64-bit, version 8. Right, well, components haven't changed too much since version 7. There's a few extra features that I might point out. The main thing here is to show you what components in the template editor can do and how to use the basic features. So let's open up a design here. Right, so here we've got a fairly typical rural road design, and there's a couple of features in here that are interesting. Let's take a look first of all at the road near this slope here where we're coming out. As we go ahead, we're coming out of the hillside, and you can see the cross-section changing. Let's just show the cross-section and the plan together here. Notice that we've got new toolbars on the bottom of the screen. We got the usual ones for switching windows, but now we've got these ones. So let's tile these side by side. Oops, I got an extra window in there. Let's get rid of that one. Okay, so we got plan and cross-section. And as I move along in my alignment, you can see that the section starts to come out of the ground. And I look at the cross-section and go, what about that ditch? Why do I want a ditch here when I've got a perfectly good slope heading down to the left? Why don't I just daylight my, my cross-section out of there? Okay, so let's use the template editor to do that. New feature in version 8, you can click on the section window with the right mouse key and get edit templates. It's kind of handy, but it's also available in your home ribbon, edit templates. Okay, and this is great because I can lift my template up and down and see what it does in various situations. And clearly it's not daylighting here. I would like to get rid of that little ditch and just put in a straight line. So I look in my template, and I see that my template is made up of a bunch of components. This is pretty typical of a modern RoadEng template. We've got a component that represents the roadway from the center line out to the edge of fill over subgrade. We call that a roadway template, or component, sorry. There's one left and one right. There's a reason for keeping them separate. I'll get into that later. And then we have ditches, again, left and right, and finally slopes. And every time I click on one of these on the left, you can see it light up on the screen. So for example, what is that fill slope there? Cut slope, sorry, and how is it determined? Well, it's a property of this slopes component. Double click would also open this, and you can see there's my final cut slope at 100. If I change that, you can actually watch it changing on the screen here. So I'll go to 2 to 1, and you can see it change. Oh, I like that better. Okay, let's just keep that. So every component has a list of properties. I've changed the left-hand slopes component. Maybe I want to change the right one as well. Well, I could just go in there and change it. But here's something that you're going to do all the time. With these left and right components, it kind of makes sense to get one set up correctly and then copy it to the other side. And you can do that with 2 clicks. 1, delete, and then copy. Well, it's not exactly 2 clicks. I think it's 4 clicks. Paste as new right. So now I've put the same cut slope on the right-hand side by copying the left component to the right component. Right, I wanted to get a daylight slope here. How am I going to do that? Well, it turns out the ditch is the right place to do that. And this ditch component properties doesn't seem to have anything in it to do with daylighting. It's an oldish one. You can kind of tell how old it is by looking down here at the bottom, created by Softree in 2012. Oh, okay, well, so that goes to show you that templates work for modern versions of the software, even if they're old templates. So, okay. Let's replace that with a more modern component. How do I get new components from Softree? Well, you just click on this e-library button here. That was in the version 7 software, but the location has changed. And you can see all the components that are available. Let's get them all. And here they are. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention. When you're looking at this dialog box, there's a button here to go to Web Info. That opens my browser. Let's just drag it across so you can see it. Come on. That's not my browser. Why do I have that thing there? Okay. Template components e-library. Okay. So there's the dialog, the web page that pops up when you click on that info button, and there's all the components that we have. We're interested in ditches and subcuts, so I click on that, and I see there's various here. Ditch 1 standard. I can click on that and see what properties it has. So you can browse around on the internet and see how it works. Looks like this is a bit out of date. I'm just going to now go into the actual component itself and see what's in there. So ditches, ditch 1 standard. It's got a little beta on here, brackets beta. That means it's had some recent work done on it. So buyer beware. So I go into the properties and I look down further, and sure enough, there is the feature I wanted, daylight. Now, as this was the item I actually wanted to show, it's kind of embarrassing that it's disabled here. That was an error since the last upload of this component. Okay, well, I fixed that, and I can show you how I fix it. But rather than do that, I'm just going to bring in the fix. If there's some time at the end, I can show you that. I've got a question here. Can you make the back slope daylight to a specific right-of-way width, and also make whatever yeah, you can change the shape of the ditch too. It's a question about can you make a V ditch or a flat bottom. Daylight to a specific right-of-way. Yes, we have a component that does exactly that. Horizontal vertical tie, right-of-way widening. There's a few here that are perhaps suited to that tie to right-of-way. So yes, there is a component for that. I may come back again and show you the exact details, but let's go through the basic stuff first. Okay, so I've taken my my standard ditch here, and discovered there was a problem with it. So I'm going to use the merge function to bring in a component from a file. So when you save your templates, save table or open table, you're saving to these little TPL files. By default, they go in your settings and layouts folder. It's now program data Softree RoadEng 8 instead of just RoadEng. But you can put them anywhere. Obviously, I can browse for them here. So I'm going to merge in my fix. It's called ditch fix. And it's going to add a custom component folder down at the bottom here. And there's my fixed ditch. All I had to do to fix this ditch was customize it, and then go into the parameter properties and well, I'll just show you. It doesn't take long. This is for advanced users, and of course Softree employees do this all the time. I take a look. Actually, let's go to the one that's broken. This one. Customize. Okay. It now has an extra plus button here, so I can see the guts of the component, and each of those we call them templates, components, fragments, and legs. So there's a bunch of information here that you don't normally see when it's in customized mode. And if you go into properties here, you can see all the same properties as before, but there's the daylight distance. Notice that it's available for me now because I'm in customized mode. And if I click on modify here, I can see, oh, user editable and user overridable were missing. Okay, this is, again, for advanced users and Softree employees, and we are kind of often asked to change templates and template components to do special things, and that's great. If you want to have a component that doesn't appear to be in our list, feel free to go into customize, but you might want to call us and just have us do it for you. Like I say, customize is an advanced option. Anyway, so I fixed that. I'm just going to change the name here so I know it's different from the one that comes off the eLibrary. Turn off stock component, say OK, and now the stitch component is fixed. So properties. Oh, notice, by the way, that it says user created or modified now, because I just fixed it. When Softree programmers fix it, they can set this to say Softree created or modified, but if you change a template or a template component, you will see user created or modified. And that's our CYA. We can now say, hey, wait a minute, this component's broken, and look, you changed it, so it's all your fault. Of course, we don't say that to your face, but that's what we're thinking. Right. So I fixed up this component, and now when I scroll down to the daylight distance, I can see it's actually available. I can type in there. Back to the main basic features of the templates and template components. I want to copy this ditch component, go back to my template that I'm using, get rid of the existing ones. Oh, before I do that, the existing ditch was 1/2 meter deep, 1 meter wide on the bottom, and the inslope is 3:1. Okay, so let's delete that, and oops, I didn't mean to do that. Delete that, and then paste as new left. There's my new ditch. Go into the properties, double-click or right-click properties, change the ditch depth. So most components, most of the time, all you need to do is change a property. So in this case, ditch depth, you can see it changing there. Bottom slope is now 0. Bottom width, this is where you would create a V-ditch to answer your question. If I set that to 0, I get a V-ditch. Alternately, I could set it to a width and I could put in a slope there. So right now the bottom of the ditch is flat. I probably should have zoomed in before I started doing this. Let's do that. Okay, there's my ditch zoomed in. You can see the bottom of the ditch is flat. Now let's change that to 5%, and it goes that way. Or, of course, -5 will go the other way. Now it's sloping outwards. So your choice. We want the ditch bottom to be 1 meter, and we want the inslope to be 3:1. And you can see it changes. I did that. Great. So now I've created the ditch that I basically had before, but I haven't put the daylight in yet. So let's do that. Again, double-click for properties, go down to the daylight distance, and we'll put in a nice big number, 10. There you go. So that says if from here at the daylight slope, which is 5, I daylight before 10 meters, just put in a straight line, skip the ditch. Now I'm going to do that little trick again. I've got no ditch on the right-hand side. I want the same properties, so I just say copy, paste as new right. Components have to be in the right place. If I put the ditch component before the roadway component, shift up, it doesn't work very well. So it's quite important that you get things in the right order. The order from the top down here is generally from the center line out on the template. Now let's see how that changes our road. So I say OK to that and recalculate. And there's my daylighting here. And as you go through the cross sections, go back to the section. Next point. Okay, there's fill. Let's go back the other way. Previous, previous. As we get far enough into the hill, it cuts a ditch. But of course, if we're close enough to daylight, then it puts in the daylight. New question. Boy, these are complicated questions. Good thing the answer is fairly easy. The question here is, can the template have a variable ditch bottom so that the back slope will hit the right-of-way at a constant slope? I think that's the idea. Yeah, we've made ditches to do that exact thing. And again, they're fairly complicated components as components go. Let's see if I can find one here and just see what it does. Okay, so right-of-way widening. I think this is the one that widens the ditch. The thing is, you have to provide a right-of-way. Let's just try it. So this is a fairly typical procedure. You're not quite sure how the component works. Copy it, go to your template, paste it in there. So we're going to put it on the left-hand side. No, on the right-hand side is more interesting here. So let's delete the right one and paste as new right. There we go. Now, what components properties do I have here? Let's just make this as big as possible. Okay, here's the right-of-way offset. It's set to 50. So I'm going to reduce that a little bit. Let's change that down to 20. Ooh, that's too close. Let's change it to 35. I guess that's the 35 there. You can tell where you are by just hovering the mouse. Yeah, okay, that's offset 35. Yeah, so that's the point there. Oh, okay, this is what I call the farmer's ditch. What it's doing is it's guaranteeing that the slope that's left outside the right-of-way is nice and gentle. And it's just cutting a ditch to fit to the right-of-way, and then it's doing the gentle slope there. So what happens if I lift that up? Yeah, it makes the bottom of the ditch wider. Look at that. Okay. So this template sort of does that. Look at the bottom of the ditch here. There's this extra leg in here. As I lift the component up, it actually makes the ditch wider so that the daylight is always at 35. So that might be exactly the component that you want. Now let's think again in more general terms. What am I doing here? Well, I could be looking around on the web to to find something, or I could just pull everything out of the e-library and go through and look and see what the ditches do. They are documented. If I look in the properties here, it does give a description of what the template is supposed to do, and every component has a little piece of text as to what it does, or every parameter, sorry, has a piece of text as to what it's supposed to do. Reference features are interesting. It allows you to, instead of using a fixed offset, use a feature. So for example, you might have a surveyed feature that represents the right-of-way that is actually well, it's a line, which may or may not be a constant offset from the center line. Of course, you can move your road horizontal alignment so the the right-of-way line, which is well-defined property boundary, won't always be a constant offset. So putting in a right-of-way offset is not as useful as using a reference feature, and the feature could be a surveyed property boundary. Okay, so reference features are really powerful. Let's just look at that. Let's see if we can create a reference feature here for this template. So I go back to my alignment. I'm just going to cancel out of here. So that's play around with your templates, see what they do. Cancel. You haven't changed anything, right? But you've learned some stuff. Reference features. Well, there aren't any obviously good reference features here. If I get back to here, I probably have a better example for reference features. But let's say I want this road edge, the old road edge here, that one, to be a reference feature. It's called ep.ep. And I can make that into a reference feature and display it on my cross-section. So let's get a cross-section right nearby here. And this is going to be on the left side of the road. Okay, so right about there is where I'm crossing the old road. You can actually see the old road cross-section there. So how do I create a reference feature there? I know the name. I just hovered over it. There it is. And now I go into the section window. There's various places to access this, but this is reference features, plus sign, reference features. Okay, I'm going to call this reference feature number 1. I want an intersection, and I want it to look like this. And that's not good enough. I have to go to definition here and define it. So it's in my topo surface, but it could be in any terrain. I can pick a different terrain here if I want. And the feature I'm looking for is ep.ep. There's a couple of them here. This is kind of annoying because I don't know which one to pick, so I'm going to pick them all. You can do that. So this is our select features by name. You've probably seen this in the terrain module. I've now selected those 4 features. A double-click selects and deselects as well. Lots of different ways to do it. You can even do it by name. Oh, I hit cancel, sorry. Type E, select those 4, select those features. Okay, there they are. Old edge pavement. And okay, there they are. There's the old road edges. Now, if I go into the template editor and say I want to connect something to one of those, like for example, okay, we're on the left side here. It turns out that you can actually choose the width of your road based on the position of a reference feature. Oops, that's not a really very good way to define my road, but there it is. Goes from the center line out to my reference feature. So that's the concept of reference features. Not a very good application, but you get the idea. Cancel out of there, just experimenting. Not a bad thing to see in my cross-section, so I'll just leave it there. I can already see it in my plan. I could even display it in profile if I wanted to. I wanted to show you also overriding and assigning templates. So again, this is pretty low-level stuff, but it's the bread and butter of the template editor. What do you do with templates? Well, 2 things you can do with your template once you've created it. You can override one template with another. So I'm just going to open up a design that I have prepared here. Webinar 1, where'd it go? Oh, there it is. Yeah, okay. So in this one, I actually noticed that there's a widening here because there's a driveway coming in, and so we've got a kind of a turning lane here. You see the roadway here is symmetric, same width on each side because I'm at this cross section. And as soon as I click over here in the widened area, you can see it's wider on the left. I'm also in a curve, so I got super elevation. How did I do that? Well, that was actually done through template override or parameter override. So if I go to the home ribbon and click on Assign by Range, this used to be called Edit Assign Parameters by Range, can't remember. Anyway, you can assign templates by range and you can assign overrides by range. So what the heck's going on here? What I've done here is I've taken ACP width left, that's the thing that defines the width of the pavement, and I've assigned it a value depending on the station. So starting at the beginning of the road, it's using ** means default, so it's pulling right out of the template, whatever value's in there. And then at 410 here, I put in an explicit value of 7 meters, or two lanes. Now there's totally another way to do that, which a lot of people come up with as the first option, and that is to make multiple templates. So let's go back to the template editor and create a new template. I'm just going to copy the existing one, paste as new. There we go. It looks the same as the old one. It's got the override in it and everything. And I'm going to change its name and so on. Let's call it RU 4L for 4 lanes. Don't need to change anything else. Oh, this is different. The new feature that's been added for matching existing crossfall or super elevation. Okay, so I've got the new template created. Let's just shift it up next to the other one. And what's going to be different about this template? One of the things that's confusing right now is I'm actually seeing the override. You can see it here. The width parameter has been overridden to 7. So the default is 3.5. The override is 7. One way to turn off all the overrides is instead of looking at a particular cross-section in the road, we just look at a generic cross-section like this one, which is all fill, or that one, which is down to the right. And I'm not quite sure why the stripping is so large here. I think probably whoever assigned the site preparation wasn't really paying attention. Anyway, we can ignore that. You get the idea. The road is now 3 meters on a side, 3.5 on a side. So I'm going to change that. I'm going to make a road that's twice as big. Now, in this case, parameter override might be smarter. Okay, I've done the left side. Easy way to do the right side is to copy and paste, right? There we go. I've done both sides. It's now wide. So you can see there's the old template. Here's the new template. I got exactly the behavior I wanted with parameter overrides, so maybe this is not the best way to do it, but there are certainly situations where you can't use parameter overrides to get the behavior you want. You have to build multiple templates. Now that I've got 2 templates, I can assign them. So let's do that. Go into Assign by Range. First of all, let's get rid of the overrides. How do I do that? Well, you can delete these one at a time, or you can select them and delete them as a group. Oh, another thing that's kind of cool here is you can copy them too. You can click on Duplicate here, change the start station, let's say 500. I don't know if that'll fit. Okay, and there, I've added another turnout. Anyway, let's get rid of them. Okay, okay, and you can see my turning lane is gone near my driveway, and now I'm going to do the template override. Templates. Okay, do I want to make it wide on both sides? No, I only want to make it wide on the left side. So I turn on left here, and then I choose my template and put in a station range. Have to click Add Edit. If you don't click Add Edit, nothing happens. You can see the list has not changed. Now I click on this button, and there it is. So it goes rural paved up to 400, then 4-lane, then back to rural paved. If I click on the right-hand side, there's no change. If I look at both, you can see that it's in the middle here. It's different on the left and the right. Okay, that looks good. Let's see what it looks like. And this right here, where the road suddenly changes from normal width. Okay, I want to go back a little bit. Normal width, wide on the left. I want that to taper instead. So let's go back to the assign by range, and I'll put in a taper template. So again, I want to work on the left-hand side, and I want a taper template in this zone. So this is going to change the template for that station range, and then I'm going to change the station range to 425 to 475 and put in the wide lane. Okay, so now it goes on the left, regular, taper, wide, taper, regular. Okay. There we go. So now you can see how the road tapers out. And if you actually step through the cross sections, it slowly gets wider until it reaches full width. Well, I'm just about out of time. I want to show you one quick item. I pointed out before that in our template editor, there's now a new feature here at the properties for the template that allows you to match existing ground. Let's just show a quick example of that. By the way, now would be a good time to start typing questions, because I'm going to do nothing but answer questions in a few minutes. Okay, so I've got a thing, there it is, a widening example. And okay, so our software used to be able to handle widening, and we did it with very special template components that had probes in them to find the ground surface. But in this example, my template is a standard component. This is just rural 1 left. It's a standard roadway component. I put in a link component here, and it's, well, it's easier. I got it from the eLibrary from the links and connectors list, and it's called point code 3. And all it does is it allows you to choose an offset and it puts a point code on the ground. So this is an existing road. I want to build some widening. So what I want to do is go out to a well-defined point on the existing road and then add my widening template. What point should I go out to? Well, I have a surveyed reference feature, so that's where I'm going to. The default offset is 3, but I'm using the reference feature instead. So that can vary depending on where the edge of pavement is, or depending on where the pavement starts to get gnarly. The surveyor picks up those points. You just use that reference feature to decide where the widening starts. Now I want to match the crossfall. That's the new feature in version 8. I just put in a standard template component here. I changed the connection. You can do that inside properties or right here. I changed the connection to tie to that point code, PTOR. How the heck did I know it was called PTOR? Well, I just hover, oops, let's cancel out of here. I just hover over here and I see all the point codes that are at that point there. And PTOR is the one that came from that component. It also says here that it's a PTOR, so I could have just read the description. Right, so I attached my standard ordinary old component to that thing and turned on this property here, match existing ground. And you can choose where you pick up the crossfall. So it goes from centerline ground to 2 meters out ground and picks up the crossfall and applies that to all the components inside. It basically uses that value to replace super elevation. And great, so you can see this is working as it should. If I cancel out of here and take a look at my cross section and move through the road. So there we're in a regular crown situation. My crossfall is going down to the left, and as I go into the curve, it starts tilting, rotating up. The existing road has a super, so I want my widening to have the same super, and that's the way it works. Well, that's all I want to show you today. I guess in summary, version 8 has the same features as version 7. It can read version 7 templates. Don't worry about losing your old templates. The user interface has changed a bit, but most of the same features are there, and there's a few new ones. And the concepts covered here are that a template is a list of components. Each component has properties, and you can modify those properties just by typing in new values. You can also modify those properties with the override tool, which we didn't look at too carefully. And yeah, it is possible to fix things with customize, but again, that's an advanced feature. Feel free to call us if you have a template problem. Great, thank you all very much for attending, and take a look at our webpage if you want to see what we're doing in the next few weeks. We should be releasing version 8 fairly soon. No promises as to a date, but it's getting close. Thanks again for your time. Bye now.